And then on the other flip side is the apparent, the SFJ component, the S component. Um, it was one of those, black and white, but it was one of those. Once I got into a relationship with another N, I was able to see the differences between the S kind of focus on life versus the N focus on life, and realize that kind of gelled with me really nicely. Um, yeah,
Would you appreciate that more than you would have otherwise, I guess?
Probably. I think so.
Yeah, but I think the biggest important thing is just that, not necessarily that we're any different, because I don't think that I'm necessarily a more P than I would have been otherwise. But I think that we both are just a lot more patient with those differences, and a lot more respecting of them. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we understand them anymore, or
True.
want them for ourselves anymore.
True.
But in every moment of every day when we're interacting with one another, we'll come up against some kind of friction. But we'll, as soon as that happens, we'll both sort of take a step back and be like, okay, which one of us is being, do we let the P be in charge? Do we let the J be in charge in this particular situation? And it's not, one of them doesn't always win. And so we try as a pair to figure out in this particular situation which one makes most sense for both of us. A lot of times people always laugh when they come over and they see us and they're like, "Oh, are you bickering?" And I'm like, "We're not bickering. This is not bickering. This is honestly how we communicate every second of every day. We talk so many more words than anyone else has ever talked." To resolve totally normal, everyday, hey, do you want butter on your toast kind of problems. It's, but because we've sort of created this agreement that we would actually see through from beginning to end and resolve pretty much every single one of those problems that comes our way, it's exhausting, but I think it's the best thing that could have happened for either of us, because then both of us always gets a chance to have our side heard and respected, and ultimately the decision that we come to is better for both of us than it would have been for either of us individually.
Yeah.
And so I think that we get so much out of it that we are happy. Happy is a strong word sometimes. Sometimes we're not so happy to have to go through life talking everything to death. But we've decided that that's what works for us. And it means that we have harmony and peace most of the time. And it means that whenever we've come up against something really big, we are so practiced at resolving those little toast problems that when you come across an enormous, insurmountable problem that a lot of other people who don't practice that in every moment of every day, they come across and they just come to an impasse because they don't necessarily think that there is a solution, and they don't have the wherewithal to figure out, how do I move through this negotiation? And so, when we have dealt with, bigger, harder things, we've dealt with them in that same, let's just deal with this little piece, this little piece, this little piece, this little piece, and we've gotten through it, I think, a lot better than most other couples I know.
I would agree. And I think the other pieces, when you look at Shanna as a J in a P setting, and a P and me as a P and a J setting, especially as children, because we're not masters of our own destiny. You don't let a 5-year-old make all of his own choices or her own choices. It's just not a thing that you do. There's the willing to compromise, the things that would normally make us, comfortable, making those small little toast to butter on toast decisions.
That's not a particular one we've had a fight about.
I don't think so.
That
one hasn't come up. being willing to compromise and to know that. And I guess the other really big thing is that we both come from families who, like, regardless of the different family types, we both come from incredibly loving families, and so that has a huge impact on it. That that we can have these disagreements and we can have these problems, but because we going through my problems as a child, going through her, it was always everything was always filled with love and genuine care and respect for all the family members involved, so that when we came together and are trying to create a family for ourselves, we bring same that we bring that with us because it's who we are and who shaped and molded us. And so that helps with that kind of that positive attitude that we constantly give each other, and the lack of better words, the lack of judgment that we put on each other. There's never there's never reading in too deeply into what the other one is saying, because we both agreed and been working at it very hard to be upfront and honest with each other in everything that we do and everything that we say to each other. And I think that's a really, really important thing, that to recognize that that's what makes us work.
Yeah, we're both very silly people, but we take our relationship very seriously.
Hells yes.
On that note, thank you both so much.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Our pleasure. Our pleasure.
Aw,